The Cigar Nerds Podcast.
And welcome to the Cigar Nerds Podcast. I'm your host, Smokin' Joe.
I'm Brad Jackson.
Here we are back again with talk about something we've been looking forward to for quite a while. But what are we going to smoke along with this movie we're talking about?
Well, in keeping with great themes, we have by a brand I don't think I've smoked anything by before, Ace Prime Cigars.
Well, it's a kind of a collaboration with Crowned Heads, and we've had a few of the Crowned Head cigars over the years. Was it Las Calaveras? Is their like annual kind of memorial cigar? But yeah, I hadn't smoked a lot of. I'd never heard of this, Prime, but
yeah, I guess
I've heard of Crowned Heads.
Teamed up with Crowned Heads, for this release in honor of, U.S. Marine Sergeant Brian Acevedo. I guess. Yeah,
this was an exclusive release to retailers who attended the PCA convention and trade show last year, and had to order these there. So, you might be able to find them at your local retailer if they're.
Yeah, always check. That's one of the things I love about just sort of venturing out to different, brick and mortars is, you find some of these limited releases, because not every shop is a TAA, affiliate. So,
yeah, if you're like a general cigar smoker, and I mean that the company, not just cigar smoker in general, usually you can find something you recognize in just about every store you go to. But yeah, it's those little kind of regional niche cigars that you kind of find sometimes that are like, oh, these are pretty fucking good. I hadn't seen this before.
But yeah, I don't know. Right off the bat, I'm really digging this. I mean, this contains some of my favorite ingredients. So this is going to have a Ecuadorian Habano wrapper with some USA Connecticut binder, some filler in Nicaragua.
Esteli Lajero, Jalapa, and Pueblo Nuevo Visos.
Yeah.
Which I do like me some Lajero.
Absolutely. And it definitely comes through on this cigar. Like,
And the band is like, to stick with that kind of military theme. It's got, the sergeant stripes on the band. And they say, the cigar pays tribute to the heroes who fight in anonymity and sacrifice out of deep-rooted honor, regardless of recognition or acclaim. It's supposed to be a medium to full-bodied cigar marked by deep flavors and balanced acidity.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the spice on this thing, I am really digging. This is a very spice-forward cigar. Like, that Lajero is just like, hey, here I am.
Yeah.
And, there's some earthiness that cuts through. Trying to see, what all else I recognize here, but it's, as of right now, that spice is the dominating.
Yeah, and this is one that it kind of set in these came out July of last year, and I've seen it. I'm like, oh, that's kind of a cool band, but I didn't really know anything about it, so it's kind of been sitting in the humidor looking at me for the last year, and I find out, well, we're doing a military themed episode. Let's try the Sergeant, and I'm kind of glad we did, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have picked it up to give it a shot.
Definitely. And that's one of the things that I love about us, the way we do the podcast is it forces you, I can't just go to my usual cigars. People don't want to hear us talk about the same cigar over and over. I mean,
yeah, and 189 episodes in, and I think there's maybe 2 that we didn't smoke cigars on for whatever reason. It's like, there's a certain point, like, all right, what's new? Because we've smoked everything else here. But there's always, such, several cigars coming out all the time, so there's always usually something new to try.
But yes, dude, right now this cigar is freaking awesome. Probably one of my favorite Crowned Head cigars.
Yeah, I'm definitely liking the spice on this. And, like I said, kind of a military theme this week, because we're going to be talking about the TV adaptation of Jack Carr's first book, The Terminal List, which we're all huge fans of the book series. I think there's 5 of them at this point. And the series, is like the first time anything has been converted into TV show from these books, and they, I don't know, they read like a combination, especially the first book, Punisher and James Bond.
Absolutely. And I guess one of the things I really loved is, there is no shortage of product endorsements through this book series.
And if you have to go on a mission of vengeance, call in the Strike Force, StrikeForceEnergy.com. Use your promo code Cigar Nerds for 20% off your order. Get them in your tiny little 10 pouches you can take anywhere on any of your missions. Stick them in the back of your Toyota Land Cruiser, whatever you got. And like I said, we're going to get into the Amazon Prime series, The Terminal List. And welcome back. We are talking about The Terminal List.
Yeah, this was one of those that I was like, oh, I really want to go back and read the book series again. But I didn't have time. And I gotta say, dude, like, I was on the fence about, Chris Pratt, if...
Yeah, that's...
could take on the serious edge that, a Jack Reese, rather, really...
No, you're right. James Reese, Jack Carr is the author.
Yeah.
The names are too close together, so you get them freaking confused.
Yes, absolutely.
And like you see Jack Carr in real life, he's like, yeah, he based his characters heavily on him and his friends. There's real world analogs for almost everybody in this series. But yeah, like you say, this is one that, like,
I mean, this is probably the darkest role I've seen,
yes.
Chris Pratt take on. Like,
this was one of those that's like, Chris Pratt, even, I mean, he's done action movies like fucking the Jurassic Park, that Tomorrow War we talked about, but there's always like a edge of comedy to, even the action roles he does. And I was like, man, especially this first book in the series, he's going down a very dark path, and I'm like, I don't know if I've never seen Chris Pratt do that, and like this is like nothing you've ever seen from Chris Pratt. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
nails it.
This is full on. I'm a I'm
here to stack bodies.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, for all intent and purposes, like, people familiar with Chris Pratt from, his Marvel shit and everything else. Okay, imagine Chris Pratt as the Punisher.
Yeah. Or what if you only knew Chris, like, comedy Chris Pratt from, like, Parks and Rec or whatever, and then you see this, you're like, holy fuck, is that the same guy?
So, I mean, major kudos to, And
it's kind of interesting, because I've been watching a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, how this even got made. Because apparently most writers, you're always like, if this ever gets turned into a movie, let's play the game who would play this character. And he was like, originally was like, I was like, Chris Pratt should play Jack Reese. That was like his first choice. And then one of his other SEAL buddies that had gotten out and was working kind of as a consultant, stunt coordinator, military consultant on all these movies, became real good friends with Chris Pratt, had called him, and he's like, hey man, you helped me when I was getting out of the service. Here you're writing a book. Why don't you send me a copy? I'd love to read it. Before it even came out. And he's like, yeah, sure. And he's like, hey, would you mind if I let my friend read it? And he's like, who's your friend? Chris Pratt. Because this guy did like stuff on the Tomorrow War and has worked with Chris Pratt in a bunch of movies. He's like, yeah, sure. And then like Chris Pratt immediately, like, before the book was even released, is like, I need to make this. This has to be a movie, a TV show, whatever. And like bought the whatever publishing rights like right then. And it was like, so it's kind of like the weird like destiny for randomly him to get a hold of this book.
That just goes to prove it's not what you know, it's who you know.
And even it's kind of the producer, like the other guy, and he directed a couple episodes, Anton Fuqua from Training Day. So I mean, you got Pratt, and you got Anton Fuqua. It's like on paper, like, this was going to be badass. Like, I was like, I'm hoping they're able to execute, but just from the people working on it, it's like, yeah, this, and even, I know a lot of stuff in Hollywood, like, hey, you wrote this book, we're going to buy the rights to this book, and then the author has nothing else to do with the project whatsoever. But when they were writing the screenplay to adapt, the book into, because going from a book medium to a visual medium, you have to make certain kind of changes for TV. You know, they brought Jack Carr in with the writer's room and let him help with the kind of remaking this into something that can be a TV show. So he's like, was there helping out like along the way. So it was kind of, very, while there is changes, and we'll discuss those later, very close to the source material, at least in most aspects, or at least in the feel of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we talked about, we're just going to go ahead and do a blowing smoke for the book series, so we're, talk more later on in this episode covering the book. But yeah, I mean, there was enough difference there to where it was like, oh, I'm not just able to predict everything that is currently or about to happen. Like, certain major events, yes, they follow suit, but there is a shift, and that just kind of really kept me invested and more so on the edge of my seat. And the other thing too, like, prior to Amazon releasing The Boys,
yeah, because
there's some seriously dark, fucked up material here, and I was like, okay, well, The Boys got seriously fucked up, so
I mean, they went full like fucking Ant-Man in the butthole this last season. Yeah, because it was like, and like some of the death scenes in the book are different, but yeah, like there's some stuff that I'm like, man, that shit's pretty bloody, pretty fucked up. Is someone going to be able to do this? Then I'm like, oh yeah, it's Amazon. Like, they do The Boys. So I'm like, all right.
But if we didn't have The Boys, is there another series or something that would say, oh yeah, Amazon is not afraid to, push this boundary or, take it to this edge?
I'm trying to think of some of like the Amazon original stuff, because I haven't watched a lot of original programming on Amazon other than The Boys and this. So I can't think of anything else that it was like just that violent or but yeah, I was like, yeah, this is the same studio that does that, where we don't have to worry about that.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know, like I've enjoyed Chris Pratt as a actor. I have a newfound appreciation for how well of an actor he truly is.
Yeah, and I do like that it was kind of true to the, I guess, the warrior culture as well, because dudes there's like so many, we joke about the books being like a lot of product placement, that you would think Jack is like, sponsored by people, because he likes to put in like, this is exactly the equipment this character is using.
I'm rocking Night Force, So,
and I like that as a reader, because I'm be like, ooh, what the fuck is this? Let me Google that. I might need one of those.
Yeah, but then again, like, you Google it and you're like, holy shit, that's a $5,000 optic.
Yeah. There's a scene where like, I looked at Chris Pratt's rifle, and I'm like, I'm building a new rifle, and I'm like, this is going to be my new like primary gun. So like, I want to put good shit on this and not like, some of the cheaper stuff I have on some of my other guns. And I'm like, what's those optics he's running? And then they're like, oh, it's an Aimpoint micro, and it's like $600-700. I'm like, okay, maybe I get a little bit better optic, but not that optic, because I was like, optic and magnifier is going to cost as much money as I got in the gun. I'm like, all right, maybe not that high end.
Yeah, I don't know. Now that I figured out I have double astigmatisms, I really want to try some of the prism optics, though.
Yeah, but yeah, what I was getting at is like, yeah, it's like all the Black Rifle Coffee like hats and shirts you see like peppered throughout this series, and and like you even like when it shows James Reese's garage office, just all the shit hanging on the wall, like, oh, there's that gun company, and I like all these little things that you see that are like, oh, that's fucking awesome. Like I'm familiar with that company or this company, and like, yeah, even the freaking Tactisquat shirt is in like a couple episodes, like different. It's like, it was very true to like that kind of special operations people. Like,
I don't know. With so much BRCC material out there, I was really surprised we didn't get a cameo from, a Matt Best or, Rocco or, somebody like...
fucking Evan just randomly show up. Like, maybe in the, if they do another series. That's the thing about this, too. There's no news whether or not we're going to a season 2, but this series only covers book 1. There's 5 other books for them to pull material from if they are to do future seasons of this. And like I say, in the books, it's each one's just like a little bit different. So it's not like 5 of this vengeance story we get. Like, the terminal list story is fairly self-contained and then moves on to other shit that just equally is violent.
Give me my violence, my actions, I don't know. Like, it was... I got finished with the terminal list, and this was, before Back to Blood was announced, or,
Oh, In the Blood, the new book?
Or In the Blood, yeah, that's it. And I was like, there's got to be another book series. And, that led me down to the Joe Ledger series. And, a little bit more sci-fi at times, because they're essentially, the Men in Black in some regards. Just,
Yeah, I gotta check that out because it's probably another year before I get another Jack Carr book. So as soon as I finish my Warfighter, the book I'm currently reading, I'll have to check those out.
But yeah, absolutely, like, nailed it.
That, and like before we get into like specifics, I also really appreciate the attention to detail. Like, all the tactics and weapons handling looked very legit. Like, and the guy who plays Boozer in the show, he is also the kind of the what you call it, the military advisor that makes sure all the things are right. Jared Shaw, which was that friend that gave Chris Pratt the original Terminal List book, and like I said, he plays Boozer, plus he's the one of the executive producers, and also the so there was a lot of actual SEALs in the production of this, making sure all of the tactics and weapon handling looked as real as possible. And one scene where he gets ambushed and just runs up on the guy with the Glock and then does like a quick, like, once he like confirms he's down, does like a quick mag change and shit. I'm like, oh, another movie where people actually like reload and shit.
Prior to that we had John Wick. Yeah, that was one of the things that, I was glad to see too, was, actual...
There's somebody pointing out that movie, the Extraction with fucking Hemsworth. There are a lot of realistic gun handling in that movie as well. But yeah, it's kind of rare that you get Hollywood people that know what
normally
the fuck
everything
they're doing.
like I've been going through and watching, Stranger Things, and I'm like, holy fuck, everything has unlimited ammo.
Yeah.
But I would expect that out of a Stranger Things. Like, if we got that same level of weapons handling in this, it would have killed it for me. I would have been like, I don't know, stuff like that I just can't get past. I'm just like, nope.
That's like I was rewatching The Hunt the other night. It was on at the cigar shop. And I didn't notice the first time I watched it, but like the first guy who gets killed with like arrows and then they end up throwing 2 grenades at him, the grenades still had the pin in them. Somehow they magically exploded. But yeah, someone threw 2 grenades without ever pulling the pin. And you can see it. They still have the fucking, whatever, the spoon in the... I'm like, those aren't going to blow up, but they still blew up because it was, Hollywood magic. But yeah, stuff like that is like, it's like, I spent a lot of time in law enforcement. Bad cop stuff in movies just like takes me out. I'm like, you would never fucking do that shit. And like, in this one, like, there was really no moment where I was like, that's bullshit.
That's it. I'm calling it now. It's all bullshit.
What's that song? It's all bullshit. But yeah, the kind of the opening episode, which, this one was directed by Fuqua. The ambush in in Syria with them in the tunnels and setting off the bombs and stuff. That's a badass sequence. Like it's. Like I said, they've changed things, and so we'll get more of that. But
yeah, and that was the other
thing.
It was like
very claustrophobic feeling. I was like, oh,
well, dude, I mean, that's very much, CQB, like, hey, we're, going into this, freaking underground,
Plus, it's the book, I'm not sure when the first one was written, but we're not in Iraq anymore. We're not in Afghanistan anymore. So it's like it's like, I think they're supposed to be in Syria. So yeah, it's like, to make this be happening now, yeah, you got to kind of update the mission parameters, because this was like, the first one came out, when we were still like heavy in Iraq and Afghanistan. So yeah, by them kind of like giving it a kind of a different bad guy, or a different mission, 2018 I think is when it first came out. It didn't make it feel like dated,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, dude, this is still like #1 in military thrillers, espionage missions, like.
And his buddy too in this, Ben Edwards, former SEAL, now CIA ground branch operative, played by another favorite of ours, Taylor Kitsch. You may remember from a little movie called Battleship.
You sank my battleship.
Yeah, I liked him as the Ben Edwards character, which he's kind of like this cool, like, surfer spy. He's just very much like, when he shows up, he's like, all right, what do you want? Answers or blood, brother? Like, they're my family too. Let's, you don't have to ask. Like, let's do this.
Yeah, let's do work.
And I gotta say this, because you don't find out about because basically James Reese is a guy with nothing to lose. His whole team gets wiped out, and then his family gets murdered when he gets home, and then he finds out he has a brain tumor. So he's like, literally nothing left to lose, and he's like, if I have a limited time left on this earth, I'm gonna find everyone responsible for my family and my friend's death and like take them off the list. Quite literally, because he's like, after his family dies, he finds this drawing his daughter did and uses the back of that to start writing target names on and checking them off as he goes. But I do like, I can't remember if it's in the first episode or the second episode where he takes his first guy, but the way the show runs, you don't have his inner monologue, and that's kind of a complaint we get about a lot of like Batman comic book movies, is you're so used to reading that person's inner monologue and knowing their motivations, which there's a lot of flashbacks, and they do a good job of kind of visually depicting the symptoms of his like brain tumor and like head trauma that he had, with all these like hallucinations and like flashbacks and memories getting muddled, where it's like, oh, this guy was here. No, he wasn't. This is like two different memories that are overlapping each other. And you don't get the perspective from the bad guys until later on. So like the first episode or two, it's solely from James's point of view, and he's suffering this kind of mental issues. So for a while there, you're like, is this stuff really happening, or is he fucking crazy? Because like he gets the first kind of ambush, they try to kill him at the doctor's office when he's getting his like brain scanned, and when he goes to disarm the hitman, they're carrying his gun. They've like, they're trying to make it look like he committed suicide or something, so they kill these people with like his gun. And then when the cops like show up later, they're like, these bodies that people he supposedly killed in self-defense, there's no bodies, there's no evidence, there's no blood other than the doctors that were killed, but he has wounds that we can't account for, and and his family is dead. And so until he kind of gets the first guy off his list, and he's like even as he's like torturing the guy trying to get answers because he thinks this is the guy who attacked him in the doctor's office, and he does it because he stabs him through the arm. So he's like, there's no wounds on his arm, and even he's like starting to doubt, like, is this real or not? And then the guy's finally like, Sal Agnew, like I work for him, and it's like, oh shit, I'm not crazy, yeah.
Give him that, no, dude, you're good. It's, there is some fucked up shit happening.
It's both. You're a little crazy, but they are really out to get you. The way they kind of built that stress level in that first mission was really cool, because like I said, up until that point, you didn't get to see the other kind of aspects of the conspiracy, and you're like, is this all in his head until, like, the shit actually hits the fan, and he's kind of like, oh, well, fuck. I'm not imagining all this. And technically the hell is that? It's like Phantom Heartbeat?
I don't know, dude. What's ticking? Whoa. I think something like...
Okay, it's not my phone. Are you tapping your foot?
Negative. It's crazy. There's a weird noise that we can't describe. Are we on somebody's target package?
I don't hear it like outside. It's definitely something in the... So if you hear a tapping, it's, I don't know, some kind of ghost. But then
This is creepy.
This is friggin' dogs under the shed scratching its ass.
It's like, is this in our head, or is this in reality?
Fuck, we got brain tumors.
But I mean, that was a thing. Like, go back to the days of Agent Orange and, everything else. Like, the government has always sort of, unfortunately, used military personnel as, disposable, test subjects.
Yeah, it's like, and that's what ends up happening with this, is it's, apparently, like, this big corporation, which, what's the name of the damn company? But yeah, they're basically making it's supposed to be kind of a anti-PTSD drug.
I think they Capstone
Industries. Yeah, they're trying to sell this anti-PTSD drug and kind of rushed it into human trials, and it gave all these SEALs cancer. So they're like, we better... And they're trying to actually sell the division of the company, so they're like, we need to erase all evidence of our fuck-up, which means these 12 SEALs, before... And then, like, as he digs, the conspiracy just gets deeper and deeper, where it's like, SecDef's involved, like, all these people in the corporation is involved. His SEAL commanders, the admiral, his JAG officer Howard, and Commander, what was it, Boxer or whatever. Like, everyone's involved, and it's
all the way up to the Pentagon.
And as he just keeps,
it's always interesting when you lose power during a recording.
Or did we? Are we having the
James
Reese moment?
Starting to wonder. I mean, I was thinking some pretty dark thoughts, there for a moment on, conveniently we just had this pandemic for a couple of years with all these pharmaceutical companies, and...
That's probably, yeah, it's like, as this goes on, like, the more, like, plausible this whole story becomes, where it's like, yeah, this is fucking weird. And we've got, a few new characters that have been created just for the TV series. Mayan star J.D. Pardo as Tony Leon, the FBI special agent and head of the fugitive task force that's like hunting Reese once it kind of becomes apparent that he is doing these things. And that's kind of because I guess because in the books it's mostly from his perspective, so I'm assuming someone was trying to hunt him, but they never really show that. So yeah, that whole kind of his like quest to stop Reese, it gave him a kind of an interesting like counter.
Well, and I don't even know like so much that it was necessarily to stop, more so than it was, let's get to the fucking truth of the matter.
Yeah.
Like, because, I mean...
Because ultimately he...
this was some...
lets him go. Once, like, all the kind of... Because, he ends up, tracking down Katie, the reporter that's helping Reese gather intel and also trying to write his story. Like, so he's, like, fully aware that, like, of what she's finding and that, like, oh, he has a reason for doing this. He's not just some guy who went nuts. Like, these people legitimately fucked him over and killed his family. I'm still, law enforcement. I can't let him kill all these people. So I'm like, required by, duty or whatnot to stop him. But I understand him a little bit. And ultimately, when you get like the climax of the show, he finally gets him and he's like, he's completed his list. Like, and I know he's probably dying. Like, just, I saw nothing. Go on about your business. Yeah. Live the rest of your life doing whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. What was the climax of the show? Like, every episode was a climax. Like,
well, maybe not the climax, the completion. When he finishes checking everything off his list. And I love the because we spoke how cool the action sequences were in this. The Sicario raid, where he finds out the people who killed, like, the first person, once he gets back, he finds out Boozer killed himself, and supposedly he shot himself with his 9mm duty pistol. He's like, no way. Boozer hated the fucking 9mm. If he was going to kill himself, he'd kill himself with a freaking 1911. And then he finds out that the same NCIS agent was supposedly first on scene at his suicide, and also first on scene at the shootout at the doctor's office. He's like, I called 911. I did not call NCIS. There's no way this guy should be the first responder for both calls. And that kind of starts him on that and the fact that they got his gun out of his safe to, like, do these murders. And he's like, and found that this guy had also, like, kind of pulled his biometric data, like, before the murders, before the investigation had even started.
No, they skimmed my fingerprints, they came into my garage, opened my safe, murdered my family with my weapons. Like, sure they did, bud. Yeah. Sure they did.
But yeah, that's like, what kind of starts it down the path. But once you get to, they find out the people that, like I said, that this NCIS agent killed Boozer. But when they find out that basically it was like hired hitman, like some like Sicario Mexican gangsters that are the ones that actually killed his family, and him and Ben go down to Mexico to take care of these guys. That's probably one of the best fucking action sequences. That whole like Sicario shootout with them, just them and then two of basically these security guys that work for his buddy, who's like a rich Mexican businessman or something. And he's like, no, I'll help you with this because these guys are bad for business in the area. So these guys, getting taken off the map will be better for the community. So let me send my two bodyguards in to help y'all out.
An enemy of my enemy is my friend.
But yeah, when he goes in there and just they start like, and Ben with the freaking Beretta shotgun, I was like, oh, freaking I love watching a shotgun fight, and how him and the one guys are like going through the building, and Ben's just running down the outside of the building, and every time one of those guys like tries to bug out, he's just outside like killing them all as they run out of the building. And then he gets the whole like gutting the dude with the fucking Winkler tomahawk. That like I was like, oh, I wanted one of these tomahawks before. Like I really want one now because that's just badass.
I mean, like seeing it depicted in the show was not near as like
it's pulling the dude's intestine out and pinning it to the wall and going walk. I mean, that's like pretty much like his like almost peak level darkness where you're like, oh shit, because they're like, you're a sniper, like we could snipe these guys quite easily. He's like, no, these are the people who killed my family. They need to know it's me coming for them. Like he could have been like way easier. Let's like take them out from a fucking 1,000 yards away. But no, there's like no this one. They're all personal, but this one is very personal. They need to need to know what's about to happen to them and who's doing it.
Yeah, that was probably like one of the craziest scenes watching, the dude like, oh yeah, you've been disemboweled, but here, let me help you with that. And
yeah. And
I was trying to envision like, would that even work? Like, would you even be able to stand to walk in that?
I have no idea, because the amount of pain he would have to be in at that point would just be freaking ungodly. And his friend Liz, who's the former helicopter pilot that him and his team kind of went rogue and helped like rescue her. They were like, oh no, QRF's en route, 20 minutes, y'all don't need, and like she'll be dead in 20 minutes, and they're like you're ordered back to base, and he's like comms back, and they're like in this freaking van in like Iraq or whatever, and homeboy's in the back's like, dude, I gotta shit, do not shit your pants, Donnie. But he is showing like the flashback of that whole them rescuing her, and the reason kind of Liz Riley, played by Tyner Rushing, that sequence was pretty badass. And then they also add into, because he's telling the story, and then you see it's another one of his like where he's getting memories mixed, and she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Donnie wasn't with you. Like Donnie was still in high school when you did that mission. That was like Rafe Hastings, which you never get to see Rafe in this show. You just kind of get he dropped off a 50 cal in a boat for him to complete the final mission, but if we get more seasons, he's a much bigger character in the the rest of the series.
Time to go hunting. Yeah, that was the thing. After reading 5 books and then watching I'm like, oh, where's this character? Oh yeah, we haven't got that far yet into the story.
Oh, that, and when he's talking to his mother-in-law too, I love that scene. Because there's at one point a flashback with him before he goes to Mexico, and before he kind of starts this mission, he goes to his wife's parents, and the dad's talking about his new freaking mountain bike or whatever, and the mom's finally like, he's not here to talk about your bike. Why are you really here? He's like, all right, I would never have hurt my girls. Like, we know that. There's no question of that. He's like, yeah, but somebody did, and there's a lot of things that are going to come out that they say I have done because these people have to pay. And I just want y'all to know that, like, whatever they say about me is like, and the mom's just like, you do what you have to do, son. And I'm like, fucking Granny's a gangster. She's like, yeah, go wipe these motherfuckers off the map.
Yeah, you do what you got to do to avenge your family. Like,
and then we also have Steve Horn, CEO and president of Capstone Industries, played by Jai Courtney. If you're familiar with the Suicide Squad, he's plays Captain Boomerang, and I love him as this like basically SEAL fanboy corporate douchebag, like wannabe dude, where he's like, he plays that character so well, where he's like thinks he's a badass, and then later on when Reese comes for him and like blows up his truck, like he's turns into such a little bitch. Like, he's like his true, like, you see him training with like his like former opera, because he also owns like basically a mercenary group called Talos Security that are like his hitman / bodyguards, and they're you see him being like fake badass, like, paying people to like be afraid of him, and then when like the shit really hits the fan, they just like throw him a vest and a gun. He's like, all right, man, it's time to nut up, fanboy. And he's like such like immediately begging for his life and shit, and just like I was like, I love that how he played that character.
No, that was a very, very well done. I don't know. I mean, that was the thing, dude, is, a lot of the names and stuff I didn't recognize, but everybody, pulled their weight. Like, it was, like, Katie's character, for instance, like the way she's described in the book and everything else, and then it's like, oh, they cast somebody that doesn't even remotely resemble, the book description, but
she had that same, like, tenacity.
Yes,
and, like,
absolutely.
pitbull.
She sold, that role 100%. Like,
and keeps like in it. Like, I like when and speaking of Jack Carr, he goes to finally he has like a meeting with her in this restaurant, and she at this point has discovered the brain tumor, and this is the first time she's telling Reese about the brain tumor. And she's starting to think that he's a little crazy. And he's like, did you see that guy? She's like, what guy? There's a fucking operator-looking dude with glasses. Like, we gotta go. And she's like, come on, Reese. This is like, your paranoia is one of the symptoms of this thing. And he takes her out to her car. And she's like, so we're running away just because you saw a guy with glasses? Like, oh, we're not running away. And, like, just backs up, slams into the dude's car, and, like, murks the guy in the middle of the street because he starts shooting at them because he was a Talos basically mercenary sent to kill Reese. And then he's like, he's like, still think I'm crazy, when he comes back from the car with the with the hit package on him. But the hitman that doesn't have a line and just gets like gunned down is Jack Carr. So Jack Carr got to be killed by his creation, James Reese. But I just love that moment where he like comes back and hands her like the freaking intel package. He's like, so you still think I'm crazy?
What is this, brother? It's a Target package.
Oh. Yeah, and it's him and, like, him and, Ben just kind of just going through this list. But yeah, the Katie character is, like I said, that was one thing when they showed the original casting, I'm like, she doesn't look anything like, and I don't know, I guess there's more of like a romantic involvement in the books.
But also, too, like, that took time to, progress. Like,
yeah.
I mean, his family's just been murdered. Like, he's not trying to get past that yet. Like, that comes much later in the book series.
But yeah, there's I guess more of like a mutual respect in this than...
Yeah, I mean, from what I can remember in the books, though, like, there's a lot more companionship, like, where Katie's riding shotgun with Reese and stuff.
And most of this, she's, like, investigating this conspiracy on her own, and they're just kind of
it's almost like a self-contained, story within, James's story.
But yeah, once she gets, like, kind of copy of the financial proof from Mike Tedesco, who's the CEO of New Bellum, which is the company that made the drug for Capstone, and they get ambushed by the hitman, and she like freaking smokes the dude, and Reese ends up saving her, but he's like, hey, you're nut up, you're a fucking war correspondent. She's like, yeah, but I've never been one doing the killing. He's like, well, you're on the battlefield now. Like, if you can't handle this, like, stay the fuck off the battlefield. And she doesn't let it go. She like confronts Horn, and the only reason why he doesn't get blown up by Reese's bomb is because he sees her and kind of hesitates a little bit before he sets off the bomb to wait for her to like back the fuck up. But yeah, like, she could have very easily been like, all right, this is getting way too even after like the first hitman tries to kill her, she's like, nah, I'm gonna keep at this story. And then like the second hitman tries to kill her, and she's still like throughout the thing like pursuing the story.
But I mean, most people though, like, dude, as soon as FBI or, somebody shows up at your door, like, they're done. Like,
yeah, there is maybe too much of a hassle.
Like,
I'll go write about something else.
So how's the weather today?
Yeah, I'm gonna be a weatherman. They don't get shot at as much. Oh, and we've not talked about the SecDef, which her kind of story is a lot different from in. That's one thing and we'll kind of get deeper into that when we start talking about the book. Is the bad guys in the series are less, I guess, evil than they were in the books.
Yeah,
like,
in the books, they were definitely a lot more.
Like Lorraine Hartley, who is the SecDef in this, she legitimately wants to help people. Like, she got involved in this because, she came from a military family and knows how, much special operators kind of give up. Played by Jean Triplehorn. But yeah, she's like, wasn't even in it for the money. Like, where everyone else in the conspiracy got like huge payoffs to do what they did, and she was like, no, I just want this drug to work because it will save lives in the long run. So like her motivations are so much more. And even the character of Ben, he's in, spoiler alert, you find out he's part of it, but he's helping Reese take all these people out, not to like cover up his involvement, but he's like, yeah, I got your team killed because I knew they were dying and I thought it was better for them to go out with their boots on, and I had nothing to do with your family getting killed, and they were like my family as well, so I'm along for the ride. I'm going to help you, even though I'm part of this. I'm going to help you kill all these motherfuckers because they took your family, which is a lot different than how, like I said, they gave the bad guys more, made you a little more empathetic for with the exception of the fucking Admiral, because he was a dick through the whole thing. But but like the big, like like I said, Ben and the SecDef gave them a little more kind of, I guess, like character than they had in like the book iterations of them, where it was like, like I actually kind of, it made it a little more, it wasn't just like clear cut black and white, like,
yeah, there was definitely
people.
some gray area that's like,
which was like I said, it kind of gave them a little more, like, fleshed out the characters more, and also like changed it enough that even though I'm very familiar with this book, it was like I'm not 100% sure where this story is going.
Yeah. Like, there were so many good subplots like that just, it brought a freshness, to, I'm sticking with, the television series because I want to see how everything plays out. Whereas if they followed the book 1-to-1, I think it'd be like, oh, called it. That looked cool. But, would you have been as invested? Like,
yeah, because things happen kind of, a lot of the big kills happen, but they happen to different people or in different orders that they do in the book. And even like the kind of last one where he figures out the SecDef's involved and goes to like take her out on her private island, she's actually there trying to like convince Katie that like this was all done for the greater good, and she's not, in this to make a huge profit, trying to convince her that like, oh, I had nothing to do with this, like, and she's like, oh, really, and I like Katie's like going along like, oh yeah, because she wrote her story and tried to turn it in, and like, of course they sucked that shit out of the internet before it could get to its destination, and then like, hey, you can print your story as like, you're coming with us, but we're gonna make it look like it's your idea. Like, you can print your story as is, but if you come with me, you'll get the whole story. And she's like, all right, and very much like a prisoner, but not, trying to make it look like she's not a prisoner. And she's just getting like all this, her side of the story, and then finally like, so you said that you knew nothing about this prior to the fucking ambush. Well, cool, because this is where the audio went out. You were already aware that just like fucking this list like, here's all the times you fucking lied to me, bitch. It's like, it's very friendly until then.
Actually, checking facts, like, That is true journalism, and I don't think that exists today.
Yeah, you don't see that very often.
Well, that's because it gets sucked out before, the true message can get,
There are Arcadies in the world, but all their shit's getting hacked. Oh. Yeah, and that sequence of him going into the SecDef's island and, like, murking all those security guys. And even, another kill with the hatchet. That's just because you're like, can one man really, like, cause this much shit? But yeah, that sequence was fucking awesome. And, to go back to the Tony Lejeune, there's one episode that's almost like completely, like I said, this is a character added for the TV series. After he kills Horn, he ends up getting his vehicle disabled, and they pursue him up into the mountains, and we get a whole episode that is not really anything that from the books of the HRT, which is a FBI, basically FBI SWAT team, their hostage rescue unit, and Lejeune pursuing him through, like, the mountains, and them getting to have, like, conversations via the radio. And I love when they're pursuing him and he's trying to talk him down, and he gets, because he's a sniper, he gets him in position where he could have taken them all out, but he's like, no, these aren't guys of the conspiracy. These are, like, actual, police officers. I can't cross that line and kill someone who doesn't deserve it. So he just leaves the single bullet on his ridge. So when they finally, like, catch up to him, he's like, they see the bullet, and he's like, what does this mean? And he's like, it means he had to shot, asshole. Like, he could have killed us all, and he didn't. And they had my favorite line of the whole series, where he's like, storms come in, and he's like in his little hideout and starts talking to them on the. They're trying to talk him down on the radio, and he's like, "Well, your dad was military. What would he say about what you're doing?" He would say it's unwise to push a man to violence if violence is what he spent a lifetime perfecting. And I was like, that's the most badass fucking line in this whole series. And I don't even remember if that's from the book or not, but that fucking line was, like, badass.
I'm trying to remember. I don't recall that in the book, but...
Yeah, because the whole, like, whatever, HRT pursuit, like, does not happen. That's, like, so this whole episode is something...
Just added, for, hey, this has been an action-packed, series so far. Let's keep our foot on that throttle.
Yeah. I mean, the one guy on the HRT was like, he was like a former SEAL, and he's like, I actually served with Commander Reese, and like, all right, well, you need to stay behind because we got to know you'll do it. That kind of happens in the books, but it's a SEAL team that is being sent out to after him, not this HRT team. But other than that, yeah, it's like a completely new thing, and he's off his meds too, because he, like, when he fled his vehicle, he had to leave his meds behind, and he's starting to have a lot more, kind of mental issues, and you're getting a lot more, like, kind of like the backstory of what he's going through. But yet, even though this was, like, kind of completely off of what was expected, I like this kind of addition to the story.
Oh yeah, no, I think with the changes, things that were added, some of the things that were omitted, like, I mean, everything made this just feel fresh. It stood on its own, Like, otherwise I almost felt like, instead of, hey, maybe I'm not familiar with the books, but I'm going to watch this television series because it looks cool. Like, like for people that then go back and read the books later on, they're going to be like, oh shit. Like,
and,
it's not like they're trying to compete with one another.
And anyone who wants to know a little more about the behind the scenes, if you go to YouTube, on Jack Carr's YouTube channel, he did a video podcast with him, Jared Shaw, and the showrunner, who I can't remember his name right now, where they broke down, like, each episode. So it's like 8 episodes where they do, like, an hour-long video podcast, kind of breaking down each episode, and a little bit about the filming and whatnot behind it. So that's it's kind of an interesting watch if you want to go check that out. That's where I learned that apparently you can't flip a Mercedes G-Wagon. Because there's a scene in the show where one of the conspirators, business guys, that he's the one that hired the Sicarios, he snipes him while he's, like, on his morning commute, and this car just, like, rolls down the side of the mountain, trying to make it look like a car accident or whatnot. And in the books, the guy drives a Mercedes G-Wagon, but apparently when they went to film this, they found that they won't roll. If they tip over, they just like tip over on their side and slide. They don't freaking roll end over end like.
Well, they're not rounded. They're a freaking box.
Yeah, so the character got to drive like some kind of Porsche freaking SUV. But yeah, I thought that was one of the things they talk about. That in the scene, there's a scene where when he's torturing the questioning the NCIS agent, he turns around and suddenly he's like back in Iraq or wherever talking to Boozer about while they're interrogating some suspect, and then it turns back around to him back in the apartment bedroom. But apparently that's all the same set. Like literally as he turns and the camera pans back to Boozer, the set changes around. They're like, he's like, yeah, like Chris like ran off set, changed clothes and ran back in before the camera turns back around to him, and all of a sudden we're like in Iraq. So it was like the way they made it, like that the bedroom and Iraq is the same location. It's like he said, like the walls turned and shit. Jared Shaw's like, I was in the scene and I can't tell you how that shit was made. It was fucking weird. It was like some Transformer shit. Walls started spinning and so it's like literally the same room for both scenes. And kind of like one circular camera shot. I was like, that's cool as shit. Like I expected that. I thought, that was two different things filmed like separately, but no, it was all like one kind of continuous scene.
The sets rotate, the cameras rotate, like
freaking Chris Pratt doing his like, Magic Mike impression, stripping off and changing clothes like before the camera gets back to him. I was like,
it's like, dude, you got bulk as shit. No, I'm wearing like 5 layers of clothes so I can do a 10-second wardrobe change.
So do you have any favorite kills or any of your highlights? I've talked a lot about the things that I found fascinating.
I don't know. For me, like, I don't know, him and some of the shootouts with the FBI and stuff like that. Like like I love the car chases, the the gunplay, and when they're like, we had to got him. It's like they approach the vehicle. It's like, nope, there's a couple splatters of blood, but there's no James Reese. Like, every scene involving the fucking tomahawk. Like,
yeah, one of these days when I have an extra $800, I'll get one of those damn tomahawks.
I mean, I like seeing it in the show was one thing, but how vividly everything is described and intimately in the books and everything. But just being able to see that, acted out on, a television series, I'm like, that just added a whole, another level of awesomeness. I don't know, some of the sniping sequences too. Like I always appreciate, a fucking long range, because it's a skill set that I don't necessarily possess.
Yeah.
Like, and somebody that can mathematically calculate, that can lead the targets and, take their mark. Like, I love that shit.
And even when the camera shows like what you see down the scope, the reticles even look like fairly correct. A lot of the time in Hollywood, it's just like a crosshairs. Anyone who's like looked through an actual like tactical scope, they look a lot different. They're not just like the little fucking like crosshairs.
No, because you got to have your elevation, your windage.
Yeah, there's all kind of shit in that little like heads up when you're looking through it.
There's a lot of math that goes into being able to calculate out your dope charts and everything else. Like, I want simplicity. I just want a dot and to know that the bullet's going to impact the dot. It doesn't work that way at 700-800 yards.
No. Yeah, it's like I'm definitely more of a pistol and carbine guy than like that whole like shooting motherfucker from a mile away. It's like that's a skill I want to learn, but yeah, that's definitely a whole different skill set than running and gunning.
But I don't know, dude. Like, I had high hopes, and they were exceeded with this series.
Oh, when he kills the admiral and Captain Howard, and goes back to his house where he's like almost like, this is done, and then he gets the text from Katie going like SecDef is involved, but because at this point the government's gotten involved and taken the FBI off the case, but he's like, well, until the until the whatever the other field office gets here to take over. I'm gonna keep watching the house, and Leung goes in there and finally gets to meet Reese face to face, and they have that fucking fight, and he's still like tries to talk him down, and he's like the people that did this are not going to fucking jail, and then he like knocks him out, and he's like, for the last time, stay off my list. I was like, fucking yeah. But that was a badass little fight in the house,
little hand to hand action, like,
or him when he goes to get whatever.
I don't know, dude. When the fucking
commander, when he like finds him outside the bar, and he's like, so what are we gonna do? And he gives him that shot, and it just turns into like a fucking MMA fight. He doesn't just smoke him there in the parking lot. It turns into like a little MMA fight, and he snaps his arm and shit. Like, all right, cool. We got a little jiu-jitsu in this, and then takes him out to the surf where like the SEALs train, and put the 400-pound log that usually it's an entire
squad
of guys trying to hold it up.
But I love that whole speech that the difference here is I had a team surrounding me, brothers. Where's your team and your brothers?
Cox, Commander Cox.
Yeah.
I call him Bill Cox. Played by LaMonica Garrett. Yeah, he's like, you, because we all had our men on our left and the right. All mine are dead, and you don't have anyone to share the weight. And the dude also had like a broken arm at the time because he fucking armbarred his ass and just let the fucking surf take him. And then makes Captain Howard wear the suicide vest.
Well, and I really like that sequence too, where he's like, fine, you took my family, unfortunately, I'm gonna take yours, and he starts dragging the son to the ocean, and I'm like that there, like,
yeah, because he gets
may
more
have been
violent as he progressively as it goes, whether it's like
like that may have been one of the darkest moments, like
yeah.
You're about to take this innocent woman and kid essentially, like, but that whole all right, so you're gonna wear the vest, you're gonna go in, like I really like that sequence too, where and where he's talking about exactly how many pellets are going to be emitted from
100 for each
and he's
seal
like,
you killed,
and now there's 2.
And then for any kind of old meme and video game fans, the Leroy Jenkins moment in the FBI chase, that made me laugh so damn hard, because he has when he's injured, he's trying to get some supplies, and he does the whole like Rambo thing where he buries himself in the freaking mud, where you just see the eyes sticking up out of the mud, and turns on his cell phone, so because he's he knows they got fucking satellites and everything else, so like, oh, we're tracking a cell signal, and he sets up the cell phone and lures the team in, and they're like, don't touch it, it might be a bomb. So then all of a sudden the phone kicks on, and it plays that like famous freaking audio clip, like, Leroy Jenkins, and he sets off the fucking flashbang and takes like a fucking gear bag off of one of the guys, and but when the fucking Leroy Jenkins goes off, I laughed my ass off. I'm like, that's fucking hilarious.
For every Call of Duty player ever, because we've all had that moment.
We're like, fuck it, we're going Leroy Jenkins.
Wait, did he just go? Ah, he's dead.
Oh, but yeah, that was funny. And when he goes, like, once like you think it's all done, he's because Katie had a list of like, here's all the shell companies that took payouts, and here's who owned the shell companies. There was one that they didn't have, and they assumed it was the SecDef. But when she was like, I didn't take any money of this, I just, wanted to do this out of the, because I thought it would be good for people. Katie's still like, there's still a thread. We haven't explained who owns this company. And she's like, the best I can tell, it's a company related to the CIA. And he picked up when Ben gave him the list, he left that like company off the list, and he realized it was Ben was involved in this, and he also because by that point Ben was also wanted, so he's like he knew Ben's bug out location and tracks him down to like Peru or whatever on his freaking fishing boat, and they have that moment where he kills them and then sails off into the sunset, and you see his charts, and his chart says Mozambique, which in the second book, that's where he goes after he wipes everybody off the terminal list. He goes and planning to spend his last days hanging out on his buddy's hunting preserve in Mozambique. So you're like, ooh, like they set up,
dude, yeah,
they set up True Believer like if we get a second season, it's like we're on for Africa.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, I mean, I feel like there's gonna have to be like,
I knew he knew something
dude,
was
this
up.
is 4.7 stars, even 8 out of 10, on IMDb.
Yeah, I think it was like the most watched show on Amazon. And also, if you look at like Rotten Tomatoes, you see like real critics versus like, it's like 40% from critics, 97% from like viewers. So it's like, yeah, fuck the Hollywood reviewers and shit. Like the actual people who watch this is like, this is fucking amazing. Yeah. So I mean, it's got to get a second season, but I haven't heard anything about production. They're kind of like, let's let this get out, and then we'll see if we're gonna get another season. But it's had such like high reviews that it's like don't know how long it's gonna take them to give us another season, but it's definitely, I would say, gonna get gotta wait for Pratt to do a couple more Guardians of the Galaxy before he has time to do another one.
Hopefully, we'll get a second season of
We finally get to meet Rafe Hastings, which I love that character in the books. But yeah, that's the other thing too. Before he reveals that he realized that Ben is in it, you see him like when they go to pick up the boat and the rifle that Rafe left for them for the final mission. There's a note from Rafe, and he's like, "If this survives, you know where to go." And Ben is like, "So what'd Rafe say?" "Oh, I just said good luck." And I'm like, he's not telling Ben all the things. He knows something's kind of fucky. He's not letting him in on the full full plan.
Great foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Very subtle, but great.
Yeah. Well, as we think I know we had that power outage, but I think we're at about an hour here. What do you think of the cigar?
Dude, cigar was great. Like, It never backed off the spice. Like, I loved it in that regard.
Yeah, I do like a spicy cigar, and it's not
overpowering. Like, I mean, it's there, but there were other flavors and nuances that I picked up that,
And it's in the $11-ish range of cigars, so it's not one that's going to be super expensive if you just want to give it a try. And, like I said, and even if you don't have a retailer that you can find them online, if you don't have your local retailer doesn't stock them. I recommend this one. I definitely probably have a couple more of these.
Yeah, this is probably one of the more memorable Crowned Head cigars that I've smoked.
Yeah, because about the only I've had like the annual Las Calaveras, but yeah, this is like only other I think Crowned Heads that I know that I've tried. Crowned Head does a lot where the cigars they release are under the name of the cigar, and they don't really have like the company branding on the box. So unless you like look it up, you're not 100% sure it's a Crowned Head cigar. So probably smoked other Crowned Heads and just didn't realize they were Crowned Heads. But this one is definitely, I'll definitely go back to this. I mean, it's not a huge ring gauge of a cigar, but still, like, we've been smoking on this for a little over an hour, and I still got 2-3 inches left of cigar. So you definitely get your money's worth. It's a good hour and a half smoke, which for me is actually kind of a little bit smaller than I normally. I'm like, if I ain't got 2 hours, ain't worth smoking. That's when you smoke far too many cigars, is when I can like gauge time, where it's like, all right, I know I have an hour today. I need to get this cigar because this will, I can smoke this in the window I have and not have to leave any behind. It's like I can base my.
I have an hour. I think I can smoke this 80 ring gauge.
Yeah. At this point, I'm like, I only got this amount of time. I'm gonna grab this cigar because this will fill that the amount of time available. It's like, looking at the sun and telling time. I was like, all right, I got this much cigar. I'll see you
Instead
in an hour
of a sundial, get a cigar dial.
Yeah. But with that, we are going to check off the last name of our terminal list, and we'll move on to whatever's next. And you've been watching the Cigar Nerds podcast. Check us out on cigarnerdpodcast.com. We're on the ESO Network at esonetwork.com. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Cigar Nerd Pod. Remember, smoke 'em as you got 'em. Like, comment, and subscribe.